You have got to see this. Is something missing in your defense in depth strategy? Welcome back to Tanium Tech Talks. I'm your host, Ashley McGlow. When I was at Black Hat back in August, I got to see Thomas Aiken in person. And we were on the same team when I hired in 7 years ago, and he did that episode recently on threat response endpoint reactions. If you haven't seen that one, go check it out. Of course, after this episode, right? So he was doing a presentation at our Black Hat booth about what industry research is telling us on attacks today and how that should direct our incident response strategy. And afterward, he told me that he'd just created this presentation for this Black Hat presentation right there. And I said, other people need to see this. This is truly eye-opening research that I want you to see today and is quite compelling. And as a matter of fact, I rarely ask this, but I think you should watch this and then ask your security peers to watch it as well. It's that good. And especially when we have so many junior people in the field who need this understanding. So now this is going to be a little different episode than normal. Typically we're doing demos and such, but today instead, this is really just going to be a security industry conversation on what you need to know for true defense in depth. So help me welcome Thomas back to the show. So Thomas, for those who don't know you, please introduce yourself.
Thomas Aiken. I've been in incident response for 30 years. I've been at, Tanium for about 9 years. Started as the global SME lead and then moved over to product so I could help drive the direction of the product as well. But I stay in touch with incident response, and I'm at Tanium because I still believe that the Tanium platform is the best platform for incident response that we possibly have in the market today.
I'm interested to see. I tell you, I'm always impressed by anybody that says they've got 30 years in anything. I want to hear what they've got to say, right? So for starters, where did you get the idea for this research?
I wanted to tell the story about what's actually happening today. A lot of organizations are checking boxes, and I have this software, I have IDS software, I have EDR software, and they're checking boxes on this, but they're not effectively responding to incidents. And we're told constantly that, Tanium is what keeps us out of the news. Tanium is what saves our bacon, those type of things. And we can't share those details because they're confidential incidents and things of that nature. But I wanted to tell the story about how Tanium is so effective for the incident response process, is going to help you resolve incidents faster and better, especially those that get past your commodity software that you've, purchased and your teams use.
So I'm curious to know, as you were putting this together, what did you find that surprised you?
The number of incidents that bypass the current software, the current security software, the current teams and infrastructures. And this is for our most mature organizations. We're still finding that over 50% of incidents are not discovered internally, despite all the investments and everything else. They're actually discovered externally. Either the attackers are letting people know, or you're having third-party organizations such as the FBI or ISAC or through other agencies coming and telling you that you have these things going on. So imagine that 50% of attacks are not discovered with all of our internal tooling, investment, and everything else. So what do you do when one of those attacks comes in, and how do you respond to that? And that's what I wanted to try to address and show how Tanium can address those types of attacks.
So Thomas, we've set this up pretty well. I'm really eager to see this again because I only saw it at Black Hat. So let's dive right in.
So yeah, and I had a request for people that didn't get to see this presentation at Black Hat. They wanted to see it again. So Ashley, I appreciate you giving me the forum for that. This is what we presented at Black Hat at Tanium, and it got a large response from people getting a better understanding of what they're facing in the industry. And if you've been in cybersecurity for 5 minutes, you understand it's not a matter of if, but when. No matter how good your protections are, eventually somebody's going to get past them. You're going to have some sort of breach externally from an attacker, some sort of internal breach, lateral movement, internal compromise. Something's going to happen. You need to be able to respond to that and detect that. This is the environment that we're living in right now. A new CV is emerging every 17 minutes. half of those are higher critical severity. A recent analysis by Veracode in 2024 showed that 63% of the applications they reviewed had first-party code flaws and 70% for third-party code flaws. Think about supply chain attacks that are increasing in the industry. That's a significant number. And then Mandiant's MTrends report, which we will reference repeatedly here, zero-day exploitation is no longer a niche capability just from nation states and things of that nature. These things are commoditized, and they're expecting the growth of the zero-day attacks in the industry to continue more and more as the years progress.
And I just want to insert something here that, when you see slides like this, it sounds like a sales pitch and a marketing, like, okay, what are they setting me up to sell? But I really, because I know some people that watch this show are allergic to sales, right? That's not what this is about. This is about awareness of what's going on in the industry right now. And yeah, you can dispute some of these reports, but if they're even half right, we're still in bad shape. So thank you for bringing this all together on one page.
So, and again, it's multiple organizations, multiple reports, all pointing to the same data. And that's what I tried to bring together in this presentation, is it's not just my opinion. These are expert opinions of the industry and across multiple layers that are all pointing to the same realization. This one is particularly interesting to me. And again, for the rest of these, you'll see me reference the IBM data breach report and the Mandiant MTrends report for 2024. But if you look at this, only on IBM's report, only 6% of the things they responded to were due to known exploits, 11% for zero day. Again, that repeats Mandiant's reference to how zero days are increasing and being commoditized by the industry. If you add up the rest, phishing, stolen credentials, cloud misconfiguration, insider threat, prior compromise, these make up 40 to 50% of the way attackers are getting into organizations. So it is not hashes, it's not IOCs, it's not YAR rules, it's not these known, easy to detect things. These are other ways that they're getting in the organization, and we have to be able to cover those.
Yeah, that prior compromise is interesting. I remember recently when I was interviewing Jesh Sachs for the risk and security exam that we just released. She mentioned this, making sure that, okay, they got in this way last time, but did we really thoroughly close all those doors? That's really interesting to see this 15% there.
Exactly. And the ability to go and discover in real time, do any of these artifacts exist anywhere in your environment that are related to this incident? And to be able to monitor for those is going to be critical in making sure that you're not part of that 15%. So if we take this 40 to 50% and we take it to the next level about how incidents are discovered, using the same two reports, again, two very different teams here, only about, let's say, 42 to 48% are actually discovered from your internal tooling, from your EDR, from your IDS, from your firewalls, from your internal teams. And these are for very mature organizations these people are helping out with. And the rest, 55% on average, is either from a benign third party or it's from the attackers themselves, if you think of ransomware and things of that nature. So despite all of this effort and training and software that we're putting in place, we're still missing about 50 to 55% of incidents that aren't discovered by our EDRs, our IDS, and things of that nature. So one of my favorite quotes is, EDRs is a great start. You have to have it. But what are you going to do when you have one of these other incidents come in? And if you don't think you're having these, if you don't see these, you have your head in the sand.
The unknown unknowns, right?
When I used to train organizations on doing incident response, and we would take organizations that had no prior experience and we'd lead them through the incident response process. This is the cycle I would lead them through. Basically, you ask, what do we know? What do we need to know? And then what actions do we need to take based off that information? And then after you figure that out, you prioritize those actions, you delegate them to make them as parallel as possible. You set up your next touch point so that people aren't calling you constantly asking for updates, whether that's 2 hours or 2 days, and you repeat this process over and over. What do we know and what do we need to know? I want to focus on that. What do we need to know? Because that's different every incident. And the Tanium platform, with this ability to bring back within minutes details from millions of computers allows you the most flexibility for your incident response process. So you can gather that data. I've spent time on site at Fortune 100 customers waiting 3 days for them to tell me how many endpoints they had with a vulnerable piece of software. Because our CMD was updated every 2 weeks. That's not good enough for you doing with incident response. You need to know that data now. We've been able to go out and use Tanium to get mutex data, for instance. We've been able to go out and look at user space environment variables and pull data for incidents. It's ultimately very flexible to pull the data you need to know when you need to know it. And that's going to speed up your incident response rather than having a canned list of these are the data I can get back. This is the data I know about. That's what I have to work with. And then what actions you need to take. Again, out of the box, we have lots of actions. We have the ability to kill process, delete files, change settings. We have modules based off all of that. But with Tanium, you can also create custom remediation actions. And one of my favorite was when we went in and with NotPetya, when it was spreading, it would create a configuration file first. And based off, SMB exploits, we went out and actually pre-created that file, locked it down with ACLs so that if something tried to create it, it wouldn't. And we prevented the worm from spreading before any signatures or anything else came out, just by going out and locking down the configuration file that it used with Tanium. It took us about 10 minutes to actually perform.
Wow. I mean, that is phenomenal. I'm just, I've not been in that place personally. It's not been my job role to do that. But hearing you tell that story, I mean, that's number one, a very clever solution. But those are the kinds of things, like you said, it just speaks to the difference in what you see in these attacks. You have to think outside the taco sometimes. You got to do something different. And sometimes that type of creativity requires that speed and scale that Tanium delivers.
And that's where I wish we could just have everything have a push button, easy button out of the box, right? But it's an arms race where the attackers are constantly trying to figure out how to get around all of those things. So no matter what we engineer, they're trying to out-engineer us. And so the ability to be agile and be able to come up with those solutions and deploy them, get the data you need no matter what it is, and deploy the solutions no matter what it is in real time is invaluable for incident response. To demonstrate the speed and scale of Tanium and the flexibility of it, I did some research on the average number of files per endpoint, processes per endpoint, and we've had twice now where we've actually created 1 million endpoint environments where we pulled back data from those. And so imagine 1 million endpoints. That's going to be about 13 billion files on average on the endpoints, about 125 million processes across all those endpoints. The average time to find one specific file, if you're looking for one specific file that's related to an incident across all of those million endpoints, or an IP address or a specific process, is under 5 minutes with Tanium. This is the power that I'm talking about. The average time to execute a custom remediation on those endpoints is under 10 minutes. So when time is money, and we know in incident response, the faster you respond, the quicker that you get the intruders out, the less data you have exfiltrated, and the less reputational damage that you have. The Tanium platform allows you to do that in real time.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, how much does downtime cost? Whatever your industry is, banking, retail, manufacturing, downtime has a real cost. And you've got the org chart there in the war room with you, and they're thinking dollars and cents while you're trying to figure things out. And if you have to wait 3 days for an asset inventory, that's not cool. So, wow, this is quite compelling, Thomas.
I did an analysis of what step we waited the most on when we're doing incident response at our customers. And about 80% of the time of our incident response was spent waiting on data. So most of incident response is waiting on the data that you need. And being able to get that data is going to speed up your incident response tremendously. And you just mentioned like your CMDB is out of date. You've got to go to 5 different organizations to try to get this data. You've got to wait for people to go through log files. Those are all things that we can help you do with Tanium to get the data you need. And the point I like to make is that Tanium at its core is a communications platform. And we have endpoint management, we have digital employee experience, we have risk and compliance, and we have incident response. So we have taken the speed and flexibility that I've talked about on the previous slide, and we've built our modules and our capabilities on top of that. And again, the one I'm focusing on are the incident response capabilities here, but we have the ability to actually also do the protection side to help you patch, to help you see where you're vulnerable, to help you update your applications, to help you go and see, where you have risk and things of that nature. So while I'm focused on incident response, it's just one pillar of the four pillars of what we can do on top of the Tanium platform. Under the incident response category, we have our threat response module, Investigate, Impact, and we have our Guardian team. These deliver value to the customer and integrate with each other to provide additional details. On threat response, we focus on detection in depth. We can process IOCs. We have our real-time Tanium signals. We have Yara. We can run safely across all of your endpoints. We have reputation optimized for hashes, and it integrates with virus total reversing labs and things of that nature. We do process injection detection. We can take in taxi feeds, Windows Defender, Deep Instinct. We can take all of that, and all of this can be customized to give you whatever detection you need for the incident you're dealing with right now. Again, we are focused on the things that are targeting you and the things that are not being discovered by commodity EDR or commodity AV or commodity EBP. We want to help you with the things that get past those. What do you do when something is bypassing your EDR? That's where we come in. We help you scope, triage, investigate. We talked about the speed and scale and flexibility of being able to gather data. We have sensors. You can get data with enterprise-wide. We have historical telemetry, both on the endpoint and also centralized. You can record that to a SIM. Triage data, send that to custom destinations. We can actually gather whatever files you need. And then you can also have scripts the data you need from the endpoint. So if you can code it, you can get it from all of your endpoints. So whatever data you need, we're going to allow you to get that from all of your endpoints at speed and scale. And finally, threat response is a big part about response. So we have remediations. We have things like response actions. Response actions allow you to queue up details where you can gather evidence, quarantine the endpoint, and do other things. And it waits for the endpoint to come back online to take that activity, right? Our most recent delivery, and Ashley, you referenced this, is our endpoint reactions. And that's our first step into AEM, automated endpoint management. You can take any of our IOCs, signals, or YAR rules, and you can then go kill the process, delete files, or quarantine the endpoint based off that. We are working on adding customized remediations to this, but our first three steps, we have customers using right and left to help them deal with incidents. And what this does is these are deployed to the endpoint. So if you have live off the land binaries and you need to do remediation based off those, that allows you to do that sort of remediation. And what I want to point out is that it's easy to block a hash. You tell AppBlocker to go block a hash or block a binary by path. But what if your attacker is using PowerShell? You can't just block PowerShell. That's going to break, your, internal processes. But we can go in and we can say, oh, if PowerShell is listening to this port, talking to this IP, and has this command line, kill those PowerShell and leave the rest alone that we're using. So it is the most flexible attack disruption platform we have. And that once deployed to the endpoint, it does it automatically, immediately upon detection. So there's no need, there's no SIM, there's no SOAR, there's no communication with the Tanium server. It happens immediately on the endpoint. So you create your own endpoint-based attack disruption based off any IOC, any signal, or any YAR rule that you need to write.
That's compelling. It reminds me of what you said in your intro, that after all those years in the field doing this and you saw what Tanium could do, that's why you came to work for Tanium. And you're helping to guide what we create for tools to arm the people doing what you used to do.
So these are the things that I wanted when I was doing incident response. And again, we have a fully public API that you can integrate. You can integrate this with your SIM and SOAR. And we have additional other Tanium modules. Like I said, we have benchmark, we have comply, we have patch, we have integrity monitor and things of that nature. So those all help with this as well. and help with the prevention part of this. And while threat response is focused on the detection and the response and remediation and attack disruption part of this. Guardian is where we take all the smart people we have and we turn their intelligence into pieces and parts in Tanium. And we take that knowledge and we don't just give you information about, oh, this is, a new vulnerability, you might want to look out for it. We go in and say, this is how many endpoints you have that are vulnerable to this. This is how many that are not. And when possible, we give you packages to go fix it and handle the remediation. We give you advice on what patching to do. We give advice on what software to update. And we give you advice on what settings to go set to help remediate this and reduce your risk in your environment. So this is taking hundreds of years of knowledge combined from our experts on our Guardian team and our Spider team to go in and help you with these emergency, 0-day, high-profile type issues that you have in your environment. Impact and threat response brings in the impact score as part of what we report whenever for all our endpoints when we alert. But impact goes in and it tells you if this endpoint is compromised, what other endpoints are at risk, whether other accounts are at risk. And it allows you to identify during an incident the scope of your risk and where you need to focus your first priorities. And again, we talked about that circle of incident response, and it was to, after you figure out what actions to take, you had to prioritize those actions. This helps you prioritize those actions so you know what endpoints and what actions to take first based off the risk you have here to users and to endpoints. It goes in and tells you, again, if this user account on this endpoint is compromised, what other systems and what other user groups could possibly be compromised based off this endpoint. So it allows you to help scope that and focus that prioritization so you don't feel like you're dealing with 1 million endpoints all at the same time. And finally, the Investigate module is our first module to bring all of that data together. Investigate allows you to bring in not just threat response alerts, not just historical telemetry from the endpoints, not just Windows event logs, security event logs, and things of that nature, but when was the patch installed? What does the performance on the endpoint look like? Was a USB device connected or not connected? It allows you to bring cross-module data into a single place where you can correlate that data and you can provide investigations. Multiple endpoints can be added here. You'll have timelines of this activity. You can bring other investigators in and you can pass this to new investigators, but provide you a central place to handle your incident management and consolidate all of that data so you can have all the relevant data in a central location.
We've got episodes on each one of these, actually. I think Impact's the only one we don't have an episode on. So I'll put all those links in the show notes below. And you can go watch if you want to drill down on any one of these tools. Obviously, threat response is the core of all this, but then we do have episodes on Investigate and Guardian, endpoint reactions, even a threat response customer episode showing what they do in real life with threat response. So I'll put links to all that in the notes below.
The takeaway from all of this is that you need more than just your current EDR tooling, and EDR is a great start. My belief is that Tanium is the best platform for incident response, period, and that this tooling will allow you to work faster, be more capable, and gather the data you need in a timely manner so you can respond quicker. And with our automations, such as endpoint reactions, you can actually create attack disruption, deploy that to your endpoints, and disrupt attacks as you're facing them. The reality of the world we live in today is that about 50% of the attacks you're facing are going to be coming from external sources and will have already gotten past all of your defenses. And the point is, what are you going to do when you get to that point, and how are you going to respond to those?
Well, Thomas, this is quite compelling, and I hope for our viewers you understand why I wanted you to see this case for Tanium, because, wow, there's so much that gets past all of our traditional tooling, and it doesn't matter how many tools you've got. Most people have lots and lots of different tools and agents and all that, but what do you do when they get past all those things? And that's really where Tanium helps. And so, as Thomas mentioned earlier, in the notes below here on the show, we've got episodes on the Investigate module, the Guardian module, endpoint reactions and threat response, and then a customer's story, which I'll put all these links there, for threat response in real life. What does it look like to use Tanium in a daily incident response? And so we've got those. Also, we have a team of incident response experts here at Tanium that Thomas was talking about. And we are not an incident response company. There are plenty of those out there. But what our team does internally here is we advise customers on how to use Tanium during those incidents. So we can guide you on how to use Tanium as a tool in your incident response plan. And that's a really good team of people like Thomas who are seasoned in the field with experience, and our customers have come to depend on that. And like Thomas said, we don't talk about that publicly very much because we can't, because of the things that they deal with, right? But I just want you to know that we are here for you if you need help on how to use Tanium in your incident response. And so reach out to whoever it is that you talk to at Tanium on your account team, and they can help get you in touch with those folks. And lastly, it wouldn't be an episode of Tanium Tech Talks without a plug for Converge. And the reason I mentioned that on this episode, if you go to converge.tanium.com, you'll see a list of all the sessions that we're doing, the labs, the capture the flag, and you'll get to meet in person many of the security experts that you've seen on this show and other resources that Tanium puts out. You'll get to ask your questions to them face-to-face there at Converge. So I'd really encourage you to go to converge.tanium.com, sign up today if you haven't signed up, and get the labs. Sign up for the Capture the Flag. It's one of the best events for security teams every year. Highly competitive, but even beginners are really welcome there because you're going to learn so much about how to approach an incident with Tanium tools. So we hope that this has been eye-opening for you as it was for me, just to see this analysis from third-party sources in the industry to inform our tactics and strategy and incident response. So that wraps up this episode of Tanium Tech Talks. And until next time, go Tanium.